Hey, Vinny, you're tall. Can you see if there's a lid up there? You know what? I'm going to show how to make vanilla sugar also. How about that?
Whoa. Cool. Audible.
Yeah.
I didn't prep for this one.
Hey everyone, I'm Claire. Welcome to my home kitchen. Today's episode is all about my favorite ingredient, vanilla. So there were a lot of questions and comments under the videos asking about my homemade vanilla extract and other things about vanilla. So today is going to focus on that. We're not showing a recipe. We're just talking all about vanilla, a magical ingredient. Vanilla is, let's say a recipe was a photo shoot. It is like the perfect lighting and like the fan blowing the hair in the wind. Like it is just there to make every other thing sing and shine. It is something that brings out the flavor of the other ingredients and it just adds a lot to a recipe and does a lot of like heavy lifting kind of in the background. It's also a special ingredient because it is grown only in the tropics, I think within 50 miles of the equator in either direction, so it's a specialty ingredient. People might wonder like, oh, you know, vanilla is so expensive and overpriced, and it's expensive for a reason. It is a very intense process to grow it, ferment it, get it to the point where we can use it in recipes. So I always encourage people to use real vanilla extract. Don't buy the imitation stuff. It's just not worth it. I'd rather not even put it in at all than use the imitation stuff. Because vanilla is an expensive ingredient, I don't waste any part of it. So I have extract that I buy, but I also, when I use a bean, that's a special occasion, and I use the seeds inside and the pod. I don't throw any of it away, and so I'm going to show you all the ways I use a whole vanilla bean. For making your own vanilla extract, you really want a jar with a tight-fitting lid. So something that seals airtight and watertight. That's really the only piece of equipment you need besides a paring knife. I have whole vanilla bean and vodka. That's really all you need. But what I like to do is give it like a little head start with vanilla extract from the store. I use this kind of as like a starter to get it going. You don't have to include that. But it does sort of make it so that you can begin using your own extract right away. One of my sisters was studying in Tanzania for her PhD, and my family had the trip of a lifetime. I went to visit her, and we went to a spice farm in, I think we were in, I'll have to fact check with my family. I think we were in Zanzibar. And we saw fresh vanilla growing on the vines, and it's amazing. They look like string beans. So these pods, when they're fresh, are super bright green. And then they harvest them, and there's like a fermentation process where the beans are kind of like packed and layered and then allowed to ferment. And then they turn this color, and I want to show you what they look like on the inside. All right, so a couple things. I should say that these vanilla beans were a gift from a company called Halala, which is women-run. It was founded in New Zealand, and the vanilla beans that company uses are from Tonka. And it's a wonderful company that invests in the community in which the beans are grown. And we had the pleasure of learning from two of the ladies at Halala, Ruby and Jennifer. And they gave me a tip for how you know a vanilla bean is fresh. Sometimes at the store, the vanilla beans have been sitting for a long time and they're dried and hard. That's not what you want. You know vanilla bean is fresh when you can wrap it around your finger and it stays coiled. You want something soft and juicy feeling. It's a shame that vanilla has become kind of a synonym for things that are boring or bland, because I think vanilla is one of the most incredible flavors that can be found in nature. Something like a vanilla ice cream with all the seeds in it is just like, there's nothing better. So I love the flavor of vanilla, and in certain recipes I'll call for the seeds of the vanilla bean. So I take a paring knife, and the key is to cut through the skin of the pod, but not through to the other side. So I'm just making a slit in the bean lengthwise. I'm going to open it up and flatten the bean. And it's hard to see, but inside this pod are these teeny, teeny, tiny black specks. And these are the seeds of the vanilla bean. So then, taking the dull side of the knife and the flat side, because this blade is curved, you simply scrape along the bean to remove the seeds. So I usually scrape, I hold my finger along one end and then scrape away. And I apply a lot of pressure because we want to take out all the seeds. And then what we have on here is most of what's inside the bean. I usually go back and do a second and third scrape to make sure I've gotten every last bit. Sometimes you get little threads like this, kind of scrapes out. I don't care, I include it, I don't take that out. This vanilla bean you can add to things like cream cheese frosting, into a cake batter, into meringue, really into any kind of recipe. But one thing you can do that is kind of special is to make vanilla sugar. I would say 1 cup per 1 vanilla bean is a good ratio. Go ahead and scrape the seeds into the sugar. And then I go back in and remove everything that I can. Now that I have all the seeds in here, I use my fingertips to work all of that vanilla into the sugar. And this releases a lot of the aromas of the vanilla and obviously distributes it throughout the sugar. So you can see the little tiny flecks of vanilla bean in the sugar. Over time, the aroma and flavor of the vanilla will lessen. So I would say it's better to use it sooner rather than later, but it won't go bad. You don't have to refrigerate it. Vanilla sugar is great in any recipe. Chocolate chip cookie, I mean, anywhere where you would add vanilla extract. I love vanilla in really creamy recipes that don't otherwise have a strong flavor to compete with it. Like, so I wouldn't use it in a chocolate recipe, but I would use it in a creme brulee or some kind of custard or pastry cream. All of those are great. Even like in your, if you were someone that takes your coffee sweet, like even in, you know, stirred into your coffee or something like that. I've never had savory vanilla in any way that I thought was good. So I exclusively use it for sweet things. I'm going to label it. Okay, that's that. Now, the question then is, what do we do with the pod? So you can also make vanilla sugar by just putting the pod into a container and covering it with granulated sugar. However, there's a lot of moisture in this vanilla bean, and it tends to, like, the sugar also kind of absorbs the moisture and then it gets really clumpy. So I prefer to use the pods to make my own vanilla extract. So now we have these 2 empty vanilla pods. Yes, the seeds are used in something else, but the pods still have more to give. These are not done, and we want to use them. So it's really the perfect opportunity to extract some of the flavors in the form of extract them into extract. So often I will cut them in half to make the size a little bit easier to work with and more easily submerged. And then throw those into the bottom of a jar. I'm not following any proportion here. This is not, there's no measurements to give. And most vanilla extract that you buy in the store is alcohol-based. So all of those flavor compounds are alcohol soluble. So the alcohol is going to, you know, bring them out. So, for example, the ingredients in here are water, alcohol 35%, sugar, vanilla bean extra tips. Often you do see a little bit of sugar added to extracts. So to make my own extract, I'm using a high-proof alcohol. I'm using vodka because I like that the flavor is basically neutral. You could use rum. Rum is great. Like, rum is an ingredient called for in a lot of recipes and comes from sugarcane. So rum is great. You could use, I suppose, like a brandy if you wanted to, but any high-proof alcohol, I recommend vodka. And I'm just pouring in enough to cover the beans. This is all you have to do, but you would have to wait a very, very long time to begin to use this. You know, you want to basically let this sit covered, sealed, until you start to see the color leach out and you have a dark liquid. But because I don't want to wait 2 years for that point, if I'm starting my own extract, I usually just cut it with actual vanilla extract from the store. So pour this in, we'll use like half the bottle. And now, you know, within a couple weeks, I can start using this and it has the same concentration as the store-bought stuff. And I can also continue to top it off with more store-bought extract, more vodka, and continue to feed it with more and more beans as time goes on. and it will never go bad. It will not grow mold. You don't have to refrigerate it, leave it at room temp. The combination of alcohol, I wasn't saying sugar, but the high proof alcohol means it will never spoil. And that's really it. That's all you have to do. So there's no precise measurements. It's just about, like I would say, the number of beans you have determine the amount of liquid, and you really just want to pour in enough to cover the beans, and that's it. I've had this jar of homemade vanilla extract going for a few years, maybe like 2.5. And I don't usually let the liquid level get below this point. So at this stage, I have some beans that are out of the liquid. So I top off with a little more vodka. But because I don't want to dilute it too much, I'll also throw in some store-bought extract. There have been all sorts of like tests about, can you ever really get the concentration of vanilla in a homemade extract versus store-bought? And I think the consensus is no. And that's why I cut it with store-bought vanilla. It's not about trying to recreate the concentration of vanilla extract you get in the store. It's about not wasting the beans and making the most of them.
Is there ever a time where you kind of take out half of the beans?
No, I've never taken out a bean. I just leave them in there. So, you know, there's no signs of spoilage. There's no mold. There's no off color or smells. It smells so good. It smells great. So, and that's really it. Basically, this thing, more is better, more is more. The longer it sits, the better. And it's just a great way to feel like you are getting your money's worth when you buy a vanilla bean that costs $10. I'm not like an intense DIYer. I don't feel like I have to take every last bit of every scrap in my kitchen and do something with it. But in the case of vanilla, it's such a special product and it's so pricey that I feel like I want to squeeze every last drop out of it that I can. So I think it's worth it to start your own homemade vanilla extract, and then it becomes a special part of your kitchen. So it was fun to take a little break from making recipes from Dessert Person to go in depth about my favorite ingredient, vanilla. And it was also great to see so many people respond in the comments and asking questions about my homemade vanilla extract and how you can also do it at home. So keep the questions coming. We love being able to answer your questions and help you guys become better home bakers. So thank you for watching, and like and subscribe.